What imagery comes to mind when you hear the word demon? Most likely that image, whatever it may be, is heavily influenced by Hollywood depictions. You may envision a parasitic and jealous entity which preys on vulnerable humans. You may see these beings as satanic disciples of sorts, incapable of contributing anything of good to humanity. Under the beliefs of Talmudic Judaism, however, this could not be farther from the truth. At this time, I ask you sit back as we unpack one of the most interesting fields in Jewish folklore, a field that is often overlooked by anyone who is not a practicing Orthodox Jew themselves. Today, we will learn of the demon who was possibly a greater Torah scholar than any human prophet that ever lived. We will learn of the king of the demons who publicly humiliated King Solomon the Wise. And above all else, we will discover just how normalized these beings became in late antiquity. The Mishnah tells us that there is 14 things God created which defy the laws of nature, 10 of these being created on the eve of the first Sabbath. The mouth of the earth, the mouth of the well, the mouth of the donkey, the rainbow, the manna, the staff of Moses, the shamir, the letters, the writing, and the tablets. An addendum to this 10th item being the ram of Abraham, the grave of Moses, and finally, the demons. Considering God created the demons in haste, he was not left with enough time to complete their bodies. We are under the presumption here that even God himself is not to work on the Sabbath day, and demons just so happen to be one of the last things that he created at dusk. This is what led demons to become disembodied spirits, the ruhot as a neutral term. While this story sounds pretty fantastical, this is not to say that the Babylonian Jews thought of demons as supernatural per se. Their creation was completed within the same time frame as everything else within the universe, and therefore were also part of God's ultimate plan. We also must understand that Jews were purely monotheistic. What this means is that they had no concept of a natural evil. God was the source of all, and Hasatan, the accuser, and any test that may come forth were also sanctioned by God. This was part of God's persecution process. This theology is in stark contrast to the neighboring Zoroastrians of the Babylonian Jews, who were dualistic, and they believed in demons being created purely for evil, their leader being the Angra Mainyu. The other religions in the region, such as the Mandeans and Lower Babylonia, had their own demonology, as did pretty much everyone else in the region. The integration of demons was in large part a cultural influence. We can really see this at scale when we compare the contemporary Jews of Palestine to the ones residing in Babylonia. The Palestinian Talmud contains little to no reference of demons at all. We only see them start to appear in the exegetical texts such as the Midrashim. The seeds of demonology were there, undeniably, but they would not become unanimously accepted until they were expanded upon in the Babylonian Talmud in the future. If we can again return to the creation of these spirits, we have the ruhot, a rabbinic term translating literally to spirit. And we also have the Aramaic word mazakin. Mazakin was a word used exclusively in reference to the evil spirits that we are familiar with in modern theologies. A variation of the demonic creation story is found in the tractate Sanhedrin. The excerpt here is discussing the infamous story of the Tower of Babel, and it divides the perpetrators into 3 distinct factions. One of the groups sought to engage in idol worship after scaling the tower. For this group, God confused the language of the earth. Another group sought to live next to God, and for these he dispersed them across the earth. Lastly, one group aimed to wage war against the heavens. Them he gave the worst punishment by transmuting their souls into malignant beings. Demons, apes, spirits, and female demons. Sanhedrin makes a sexual distinction for whatever reason. Yet another variant holds that God was the original creator of these demons, but they would then reproduce with the original human pair. Adam and Eve were separated for a period of 130 years after their expulsion from Eden, and it was said that Adam bore female spirits and Eve bore male spirits. Talmudic Judaism never sought to eliminate this aspect of creation entirely, as we see in other belief systems. In fact, they in many cases saw these creatures as their equals, also bound to the same rabbinic laws as humans. They were only really different in 3 ways. They could travel very fast, they did not always observe the Shabbat or Sabbath, and they could make themselves invisible at will. Demons were thought of as an indisputable inhabitant of God's world that we should accept as such. The rabbis are quoted saying, "If our eyes were permitted to see the spirits that surround us, we could not rest on account of them. They outnumber us, they surround us, Every man has 1,000 at his left side and 10,000 at his right. While this may sound overwhelming to us, for them it was completely normalized. It was so normal that the rabbis would even seek demonic guidance. A very prominent demonic figure went by the name of Joseph. He appears a few times in Talmud, but the most often highlighted is when Rav Papa relays his advice on avoiding demonic provocation through the use of even numbers. This particular instance is in reference to alcoholic drinks. Joseph says, "For 2 we kill, for 4 we only harm. With 2 we punish whether it was accidental or intentional. With 4, if it was accidental we don't punish, but if purposeful, then we do." For some context, Jewish lore holds that even numbers are unlucky and invite evil spirits to harm you. This superstition was unique to Judaism and is another way that it differed from other groups within the region. Joseph here serves as a demonic informant. He gives very valuable information on how humans may avoid being spiritually compromised while enjoying alcoholic beverages. A kind of quirky solution that Joseph gives is that in the event you find yourself drinking an even number of drinks, you will join your left and right arm together to form a single limb. In this way, you eliminate the even count because you have made yourself a 3-limbed creature. Joseph wasn't only educated on demonic law, though. He was also said to be very well versed in the Torah. So well versed that he is even thought to have taught it on the Sabbath. This wasn't a unanimous belief, but it would explain a few things. Bavli Eruvin highlights this, saying, "Come in here. Who was it that taught legal traditions on a Sabbath morning to Rav Chisda, and on the same Sabbath evening taught 7 to Rabbah at Pumbedita?" The distance between these two locations was an estimated 40-hour walk, a feat that would be impossible on the same Sabbath day. This left the rabbis with 2 theories. It was either Elijah traveling on his fiery chariot, or it was Joseph the demon, as we know that demons are able to travel at remarkable speeds. In another case, we have what is believed to be a demon possessing the body of the emperor's daughter in Roman Palestine. The being in question went by the name Ben Thalamion. The Roman Palestinian emperor had recently outlawed the observation of the Sabbath, the circumcision of young boys, and had enacted a motion that would force intercourse during a woman's menstrual period. Pretty strange, and obviously was done out of pure spite. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was disgusted at hearing this news, and so he planned a course of retaliation. This character, Ben Thalamion, approaches him and asks if he can accompany him on his mission. Rabbi Shimon gladly accepts the help. We then have a scene described in which Ben enters the body of the emperor's daughter in a dramatic display. Rabbi Shimon commands him to exit the body, saying, "Ben Thalamion, leave! Ben Thalamion, leave!" while the emperor watches on in great distress. Shimon obviously removes him to the emperor's relief, in which the emperor nullifies his previous Sabbath restrictions and the like, thus restoring peace to the Palestinian Jews. This whole scenario is very reminiscent of staging a fight with one of your friends in order to impress a girl that you have a crush on. That's what it reminds me of, anyways. Ben Thalamion is not explicitly described as a demon here, but it can be inferred pretty easily. The omission of his being explicitly described as such is telling of just how commonplace these creatures were. All of these situations of demons aforementioned were examples of demons that did not fit into our modern conceptualization of their purpose. However, that's not to say that the Talmudic demonology did not have these evil spirits present, the mazakin. Generally, the mazakin would commit trivial harm and followed along a certain demonic framework. There were ways to test for demonic presence, such as scattering ashes along the place of your dwelling, and whenever you looked back, you would see chickens' footprints, and that would let you know that there was a demon in the vicinity. There was even a way said to remove the veil from your own eyes in order to see demons at all times. This was done by immolating a newborn kitten. In certain cases, though, we had demons who were blessed with a superior intelligence, the main characters, if you will, the most famous of which challenged the wisdom of King Solomon himself, Ashmedai, a demon that appears in the deuterocanonical book of Tobit. He also appears in Zoroastrian text, instead called Ashmedava, or the Wrath Demon. Ashmedai was extremely powerful. He had the unique ability to travel between the earth and heavenly realm, and so he used this ability to study in the yeshiva of each respective realm. Every single day he would study Torah, and so he was probably more educated than any other spirit, disembodied or not. He could be compared to a monk in that he spent all of his days atop of a mountain only stopping to drink from his well. King Solomon in all his wisdom sought to make contact with Ashmedai. Ashmedai is known as the king of the Shadim, or demons, and he would become a very valuable asset to Solomon in the construction of the Second Temple. In one shocking Talmudic recount, though, their relations are anything but civil. The tractate Gittin tells us that after scaling the mountain, Solomon asks of Ashmedai, "How are you greater than us humans?" Ashmedai responds, "Remove my chains I am bound by, and give me your ring. I will then show you my greatness." Solomon listens to his request. Ashmedai then swallows his precious ring, stretches one wing to the heavens and the other wing on earth, and launches Solomon a distance of 400 miles. In the Hebrew Bible, Solomon is seen as one of the wisest humans to ever live, only losing some of his divine gift whenever he commits the sin of lust. And so to see him humiliated this way by a demon, which he is known to command as slaves elsewhere in Scripture, is pretty shocking. And can we blame Ashmedai for his actions? Solomon enters his domain unsolicited. He violates his privacy and solitude he finds in Torah study, and for that reason, his actions could be justified. Ashmedai, in a Talmudic context, is not evil, I would argue, although he is presented as such in other texts. Satan himself is more closely related to angels than demons in the Talmud. He appears as Samael, the leader of the Satans. He also assumes the position as the angel of death whenever he takes the soul of Moses. The way that we commonly conceptualize Satan and demons today, and the imagery that is perpetuated by Hollywood movies, can be mostly traced back to the neighboring Christians in Babylonia during the Talmudic period. Syriac Christians, along with the early church fathers, often accused ancient Jews of practicing idolatry by fearing the Ruchot. Demons in Judaism of late antiquity were even mortal. A certain story in the Mazaket Helene can attest to this. And so the efforts of early Christian groups to defame the name of Judaism saw the words Ruchot, Shadim, and Masakin all being completely lost in translation. Intentionally, all spirits became evil in the Christian theology. It is so well ingrained today that we have the word demonization used exclusively in a negative context. The demons became demonized, as funny as that sounds. Thank you so much for watching this video. I thoroughly enjoy studying for these videos, and if you enjoy learning about it, then I would strongly encourage that you subscribe to the channel so that I am enabled to make more. If you would like to further express your support, you can make a donation at my Patreon at the first link in the description. I would be eternally grateful. Thank you again, and I hope to welcome you back next time.